What's up, y'all? Y'all know what it is. It's your boy DGat. We are back at it again with another one. And this time we're gonna do something a little different. Instead of bringing Pegasus to the shop, I got my other car Vane at the shop. I've been neglecting them and been putting off a couple repairs, so it's time to go ahead and get that fixed, because I can't just have one reliable car out here in Houston. You really need two, because you never know what happens. You never know what's going on. So you always need two reliable cars. So I got my boy Jose on here, about to check out my car, see what's wrong with it. I already know the rack and pinion is giving me some problems. May have to do something with the brakes also, and then also the car is giving me some trouble starting. So we're gonna figure out what's going on, diagnose the situation. But enough talking, let's go ahead and jump into this video. Okay, so the first place I know we're gonna start is this rack and pinion right here. As you can see from the rack and pinion boot right here, it's leaking all over the place. All right here is just power steering fluid. I know that has to go for a fact. And then also we're gonna have to change out the rotors. They're warped, a lot of heat spots on them, and then the brake pads as well. The first thing Jose has to do is get these tie rods right here loose. In order to do that, he's gonna bang them loose with the hammer because they're a little seized up. Alright, there's one tie rod in. He's gonna go to the other side to get the other tie rod in off as well. Same procedure. The tie rod is designed to connect the hub assembly, which holds the brakes, etc., to the power steering assembly on the other side of the tie rod. Alright, now he's pulling out the rack and pinion assembly out. We got the suspension loose, the power steering line, so now the rack and pinion is able to just come right out. Man, just look at how old this thing looks. Looks like an ancient relic or something, but I can't complain. This rack and pinion's got 182,000 miles on it, so it served its purpose and it done its job. It did what I expected, but it's on to newer and better things. Alright, now he's opening the box to the new rack and pinion assembly. Y'all, just take a look at this rack and pinion assembly. Let me show you this. Just look at how much newer this thing looks. Look at how better this thing looks. It's got the new inner tie rods with the tie rod bushing on it too. The cover boot, which is the black rubber piece right there. Man, this thing is just clean. Now he's installing the new rack and pinion assembly onto Vane so that he can secure it to the frame and then connect the power steering lines to the rack and pinion. What you're looking at right here is one of the entry points of two, where he's going to secure the rack and pinion onto the frame. Now that he's got the rack and pinion secured to the frame, also known as the power steering assembly, now he's working on fastening the power steering lines to the rack and pinion. Okay, so here's where we're at now. We're pulling the control arm off because the control arm bushing is just ate up. It's completely gone from all the power steering fluid. We're replacing the rotors. Just look at how warped they are and filed down and worn down they are. And also we have to replace the brake pads as well. The brake pads are pretty much used up. They're done. It's metal to metal contact, so they gotta go. And if you spin around to this side here, the rotor here is worse. Just look at all of this. Look at this groove. Look at how deep that groove is right here. That just shows me that right here the rotor is completely done. So that's where we at right now, changing all of that. Now, for those of you that don't know what the rack and pinion is, pretty much the rack and pinion is what controls the steering when you're steering the steering wheel. So my rack and pinion went out. Basically means it's leaking power steering fluid. It's just spewing all over the place. Made it real hard for the vehicle to turn. No power steering, it sucks, man. It's like old school back in the day military Hummer vehicles, like terrible. So yeah, that was going on. Another sign was you're hearing the grinding noise, and no matter how much power steering fluid I put in, it continued to leak.
continued to spill, the grinding, the hard turning, and then it started to eat up my tires because the steering wheel kept coming out of alignment. So all of those signs told me that the rack and pinion was out, and it is the original rack and pinion with 183,000 miles on the car. So it is safe to say it kind of was time for it to happen. So we just got that back on. We got to change out the control arm bushings. That's another thing why it's important to change out parts, especially when they're leaking fluids, because when those fluids leak on the rubber, it dries it out, and when it dries it out, it makes that rubber crack and separate very easy. So due to the rack and pinion being out, that meant the power steering fluid is leaking everywhere on the bushings, wore out the bushings, so now the control arm is wobbling all over the place, which makes the car ride even rough, makes the suspension ride even harder. So you know, leaving that neglected will prematurely wear out other parts in the suspension. So it's best to change things as soon as possible. Thankfully for me, I didn't have to drive it that far, and I don't drive it that far every day, so it wasn't too bad. But if you're experiencing some of those symptoms, you may want to go ahead and consider changing out your rack and pinion, and you will definitely notice a difference. But he's getting that done. We're gonna check out what's going on with these brakes, see what needs to be changed on the brakes, and get that done too. So let's get back to it.
This is the driver's side lower control arm. Look at how ate up this bushing is. Right here is just completely gone. You can just see how this thing has had it. It's done. But yeah, this is definitely what you call a worn out control arm bushing. Gotta go. Passenger side bushing, still bad. It's not as bad. Yeah, that's still pretty bad. What about the other one?
It looks good.
How's it good?
Just this one.
Working the brake caliper loose. Got stuck up on the rotor. Once he gets that brake caliper loose, we'll get the rotors off, change out the brakes, put it back together.
Oh, that's good. Check the ones on the other side.
Ooh, man, just as I thought. Passenger side pad completely gone. You see the line? Can't even see the line on the left pad. This thing is completely worn out. I knew it though. I felt it. Car barely slowed down. That's just terrible. Just look at the comparison from driver's side to passenger side. Big difference. Change them all. Alright, so I'm back. I got my rotors. And I got my brake pads here. Got the premium ceramic. Less brake dust. A lot easier on the car. This is just the best ones to get if you got a regular daily driver. Ceramic brake pads. Boom. Got it. And then I also have my control arm bushings for that blown control arm bushing I got on the driver's side. And this is what the new bushing looks like right now. And he is ready. Removing the old control arm bushing to pop the new one in. It just pops right out, and then we press the new one in. Boom. Look at that. There we go. Now this my friends is what we call the secret press machine. We're going to use this to press the control arm bushings right into place. Alright, we got our driver's side control arm secured on the car, rotor secured on the car, and then we got our mounting brace here bolted in there and there, and we need to replace the hardware kit on it. And look at how new those rotors look. That's the new rotors right there. Now he's pushing the piston back into the brake caliper. I'll show you guys what that piston looks like. Let's take a look. This is the piston here. He just has to push it back in, flush into the caliper, this piston, like so. So the brakes can slide back onto the mounting brace and the caliper can fit on snugly. And these are the new brakes here. Show you guys the difference between those old brakes and these new brakes. This is the new brake. Just look at that pad thickness, just thick. So yeah, just real thick, you know. That's the fresh pad, and this is the old pad. This is what you call metal to metal. Completely gone, completely filed down, just total. Now he's securing the new brake hardware onto the mounting brace. That's the chrome pieces that you see there that he's sliding onto the mounting bracket. The hardware is what secures the brake pads into place and keeps them from leaning forward and back on the rotor. Now that he's got the hardware secure, he can put the brake pads in there. And once he has the brake pads in there, he can put the last hardware piece into the brake caliper. Once he puts that last hardware piece into the brake caliper, he can put the caliper back on. He's got the last hardware piece put into the caliper. Now all he has to do is fasten in the 2 bolts here into the mounting brace, which secures the caliper to the mounting brace and the pads. Securing the sway bar bushings back onto the car. Then we'll put vane on the ground and we're ready to roll, baby. Oh, and I almost forgot. Whenever you're changing out the suspension and all of those parts, anytime you're changing the suspension, the rack and pinion, it's always best to get an alignment. He doesn't have an alignment rack here, so he's just going to do it the old school way, just to make sure that my wheels are as straight as possible. My camber, caster, and toe, hope I said it right, I think that's correct. I know it's correct, as a matter of fact. Just make sure that all of those are in place as close as possible so that I'm not putting excess wear into my tires. So keep that as a mental note. Anytime you're doing any type of suspension upgrade or change, make sure you get an alignment. Same goes for when you replace the rack and pinion as well, because they do have to remove and replace or reinstall your suspension when that's being done. Alright, so that's done. Everything's been put on. They got my alignment as close as they possibly could get it. And we got the power steering fluid back in vane. Man, I think we're about ready to get out of here.
Alright, so we finally got everything done. Got the rack and pinion in, got the brakes, got the rotors changed, got the control arms changed. Vane is good to go. Also topped off the power steering fluid, because of course when you change out the rack and pinion you lose some fluid. So make sure you fill that up. Make sure you turn the steering wheel a couple times so that it flushes out the air in the system. So you want to flush out the air in the system, because you're going to have to refill it with more power steering fluid. You might have to do that a couple times until the system is actually full. And then as you drive as well, it'll continue to get better. So we got all that done. Use the rope to kind of get the alignment as close as possible, because of course when you take off the rack and pinion, you gotta disconnect the inner and outer tire rods, which are connected to the tire. And when you do that, it throws the alignment off. So we have to go set the alignment again, make sure it's straight so that we don't wear out the tires. So all the major stuff is done. Gotta go down to Goodyear, get that alignment set, and then we'll officially be good to go.
All right, guys, so we got the alignment done on vane. Everything is done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already, and make sure you hit the bell right next to it so you stay updated on all my upcoming content. With that being said, I love you guys so much for your support, and until next time, God bless and Godspeed. We out.